the heels of those great words and that great commission, we bring to you Kenneth Thompson.
All right. How everybody doing?
Great.
I once read that the number one rule to leadership is to define reality. With that said, the question is, what is the reality of us? On the surface, we are all here because somewhere along the line, our pain introduced us to our purpose. As we say, the work chose us. For me, my journey, it began long before I ever knew what the words community violence intervention ever meant. The date that I pick out is October the 16th, 1997. That was the day that my nephew, little Bill, was born. It was also the day of my older brother's funeral. His mother gave birth that morning and attended the funeral that night. I still remember sitting in the church, 15 years old, standing around as my 19-year-old brother laid in the casket. I silently felt like the responsibility of retaliation had somehow been placed on my shoulders. Nobody said it out loud to me. Nobody even whispered it to me. But I could feel it, and I knew it. I didn't understand back then. I didn't understand the grief. I didn't understand how violence reproduces itself inside the minds of young men. All that way had led me down many roads, and all of those roads eventually ended with me receiving a 20-year federal sentence at the age of 24 years old. One day during my incarceration, my nephew came to visit me, maybe on my 9th year. Alongside him was my 2 older sons. At the time, my sons may have been like 14 or 9 years old. My nephew wanted to tell me something that he just couldn't tell me over the phone. And what my nephew wanted to tell me was that he identified the son of the man who had killed his father. And he had already made up his mind that he was going to kill him. I asked him the question, what's the reason why? And his answer was simple. He got the same name as his dad, as I got the same name as mine. And at that moment, I had realized that society had done to him the same thing that it had once done to me. It had convinced him that his pain was supposed to be revenge, that his route to manhood was supposed to be because of retaliation, that his grief was supposed to be accompanied by violence. And I had to tell him at that moment that your father's death is not your death burden to carry. And then he told me something that I never fully admitted. I told him something that I never fully admitted to anyone, and after that, really, to this day. I told him there was one time in my life that I wanted to kill the brother of the man who had killed my brother. I even applied and did everything that I possibly do it, but God seen another route for me. And right there inside of that prison, in that visiting room, looking at other incarcerated men, I watched as tears fell down my nephew's eyes, and I could almost see the burden drop off his shoulder. Because at that moment, what I realized was that this is what this work is really about. It's not just about stopping bullets or clearing out safe pathways. It's about interrupting the thought process that makes somebody believe that they're supposed to be killing someone. It's about it's about the challenging of beliefs that we all been infused into the minds, hearts, and identities of our young men for generations. It's about standing in front of someone headed towards destruction and giving them another direction that they can wholeheartedly believe in. And truth is, many of us in this room are alive today because somewhere along our journey, somebody interrupted us too. That is why this work matters. Because every young person that we save is just not a life that's saved. It is also a generation. And that is why we sit inside the room and be who we are. That is why a lot of us are born home, to turn the tide in Virginia Beach, to create a formula in Houston, to create legislative work, to create CVI ecosystems inside of their homes in Cleveland, Ohio. Every single one of us now understands something that the world is finally beginning to recognize. Public safety is not simply about reacting to violence after it happens. It's about preventing the hopelessness before violence ever begins. CVILA has gave many of us the language for things that we have already lived through. But more importantly, it gave us each other. It reminded us that the weight we once carried alone, we can now carry together. And on behalf of Cohort 5, the fifth element, we would all like to thank Giovanni Cabinets, Mariah Cooley, Heather Bland, Mark Saint, Dean Mark McAllister, Dr. Chico Tillman, and everyone else who poured in us throughout this journey. For you gave us more than the training. You gave us tools to turn our pain into purpose, to take our ideation into implementation. As the legendary Connie Rice once told us, the number one right to freedom is the freedom to feel safety. And for sure, our people deserve to be free. Thank you.